Well, hello, everybody. This is HQ. What is going on in the world? Y'all done made Jane Fonda come out and speak up for Don Lemon. Y'all need to cut it out. The world is gone topsy turvy. Mm, mm, mm. I was gonna wait till later on, to actually come on. But let's listen to Jane Fonda. Jane, the girl, the lady, the legend. Here we go. All right, she's gonna appear on screen soon enough. Is that working? Walking? Yeah. Famous Jane Fonda.
Okay.
Film movies.
So I'm here representing the Committee for the First Amendment, which is made up of about 3,000 members of the entertainment industry, prepared to fight for our constitutional right, our freedom of speech, assembly, protest, freedom of the press. The arrest of Don Lemon doing his journalistic duty is one page more out of an authoritarian playbook. And we say enough is enough. We have to fight to protect our rights. Many of our fathers and grandfathers fought and died for these rights. And we are not ready to sit and be quiet. We have to speak up. Every American who believes in our Constitution has to speak up. Don Lemon is a professional journalist. He and his producer were doing their job. Nothing more, nothing less. And he's been arrested. And they'll make up all kinds of defamatory things to say about him. That's what they're doing. This is how autocrats act. We can't fall for it. We have to speak up. When a red line is crossed like this, we cannot be silent. And I want... You want to say something? No. Okay. So I know Don Lemon. My husband created CNN, and I will fight for their right to speak, which is guaranteed in our Constitution. They arrested the wrong Don. Thank you very much.
Mm.
He's a journalist. I can't hear.
Hey, we can only take questions if we can do it in an orderly manner. So right now, this gentleman's asking a question. So the feds are alleging this wasn't peaceful, that parents were blocked from their
This is why we need independent journalists who will tell us the truth about what happens. We have learned from experience that this administration lies in order to.
You respond to Donald Trump attacking civilians getting murdered. Why are civilians getting murdered under this administration? Donald Trump attacks churches and hospitals. So you answer that.
People are very passionate about what they think. The First Amendment. There was a reason why the First Amendment. It was a reason why the First Amendment was the First Amendment, and I wonder if she's going to actually be able to hear and take those questions. But, well, I guess if we were in the middle, we would be able to hear what she had to say. But it is what it is, right? I mean, there's serious things unfolding in this America of ours. I mean, this isn't really about political news cycle and things like that. This is about the freedom of our country, the transparency, the power, and whether truth will still matter in this country. We have seen many and various violations of that First Amendment, okay? And it's really, really important when a government tries to inhibit us using the First Amendment, violating it and violating other people's First Amendment. So everybody heard about the Epstein files. That was a big, gigantic drop. Documents that were released today, millions of pages now, on the public. We encourage people to go see. It's people can go see. You can go see for yourself. Okay. And I believe a lot of this, all of these things that have occurred today, there were plenty of things that occurred today. Not necessarily just Don Lemon getting arrested, but why did all of these things that happened today happen? Why did they all come out and do things today? We're on the verge of a government shutdown. We have journalists being arrested. We have, what else? Epstein files being released. And I'm sure there's something else that I'm forgetting, right? Okay. I'm sure there's something else that has to be done. Okay. And these are files, and these Epstein files are supposed to be transparent under a law passed by Congress that the president himself signed. But what's really coming out of this release isn't just the documents, right? It's questions about who got protected, who gets named, and who gets ignored in these documents. Okay. Right alongside of that, Don Lemon gets arrested. Okay. He gets arrested for being in a church. And he clearly said, I am not a part of the story. I am just filming the story. Okay. That was absolutely a part of what he said. Okay. And yet and still, we have this DOJ weaponizing this in our lifetime. We having a DOJ go against people, go against regular, ordinary citizens. We also know he was not. He clearly said what he was doing. He clearly said, that's the part of you being a journalist. You have to clearly say what you're doing there. You can't just be there and just be filming. You have to clearly say what you're doing. He clearly said he was doing his journalistic duty. Clearly. Right? And that's what protects him. That's what will protect him. And that's what will protect Georgia Fort and the other journalists that were also there and who also said the same thing. So this is a free press, or it's supposed to be a free press in this country. Okay? You're supposed to be able to criticize your government. Okay? with the way the Constitution was written, the First Amendment was put first for a reason, like I said, because without free speech and a free press, everything else doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Everything else crumbles about that. It doesn't matter how good a system is on paper. If the government can silence criticism, arrest reporters, or pressure media outlets to let go of pressure media outlets to let go of a comedian, then the people will lose their voice. You cannot allow that to be something that infringes upon the First Amendment right. That's not theory. That's history. And right now we're watching that play out in real time. We saw journalists. We saw Don Lemon and Georgia Floyd. We saw them all taken into custody simply for reporting on protests, not leading the protests, reporting on the protests. This kind of treatment of the press is not what freedom looks like. It's what control looks like. This administration is trying to kill dissent, and it erodes the trust of our foundations. Okay, this is something you cannot allow to happen. Speaking on the Epstein files, what they are and what they did. Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and the president signed it, even though he had no intention of trying to keep his name in the middle of it. He lied, or he just did it so we could get off his back. He really had no intention of allowing people to see the files. He's in the files. Donald Trump is in the files. Okay? The president signed it. It was a bipartisan effort with 44, I think it was 427 to 1 vote in the House and a unanimous consent in the Senate to make the documents public so people could see what was really there. Millions of pages, multi-million pages of emails, photos, court records, and internal communication. I encourage everybody to go to the website, look at the documents, and you come away with your take on it. Okay, you come away with a take on it. It's available for everybody to listen, look at, read, whatever. So I personally believe that Donald Trump is in the files. He wouldn't be fighting so hard to keep people out of the files if he wasn't in the files. He's in the files. There's something in the files that is so terrible that he doesn't want people to know. Millions of pages, multi-millions of pages of emails, photos, court records, internal communication, you name it. Some of it's been redacted. Some of it is still being sifted through, but the volume is massive. Anybody can go and read. And what's clear is that this was supposed to be about what accountability truth was. And yet now we have reports that the Justice Department withheld documents in ways that aren't fully transparent. Okay, so agency explained it's about victim privacy, but we know the slow rollout and heavy redactions make it look like there's something else going on behind the scenes. And then we have to deal with Pam Bondi, the attorney general, dropped the first phase, but she knew full well there was more than that. Okay, she knew it was more. She knew full well there was more than that to be dropped. Okay, Don Lemon made it perfectly clear that he was not a part of the protest. Just because I'm standing there doesn't mean I'm a part of the protest. He specifically, and I've listened to shows all morning about this, and every show, darn near said, Don Lemon stated explicitly that he was not a part of the protest. He was just there to record the protest. As long as he made that very clear, and he didn't act in any way as a part of the protest, he was there asking questions of everybody here, there, and everywhere. He was asking questions. taking a camera and rolling around, he was not a part of the story. He was recording the story. And that's the First Amendment right for him to record the story. Okay. Yes, he did, Black America. Just because you don't understand journalistic talk doesn't mean he didn't say it. He said what he said. He said, when somebody asked him, are you a part of the story? He said, I'm not a part of the story. I'm recording. He said that. You didn't hear what I said. He said when somebody asked him early on, is he a part of the story? He said, I'm only here to record the story. Once he says he is a part of recording the story, that is when you know he is a reporter. He's there as a reporter, not as a part of the story. Okay, y'all have to listen to reporter speak. You need to go to another journalist site, and they will explain it to you. You have to make yourself known as a reporter. You don't have to stand there and say, I'm Don Lemon, I'm a reporter. That's not what he said. I'm Don Lemon and I'm a reporter. He didn't say that. What he said was, I'm not a part of. Somebody asked him, was he a part of the group? And he said, no, I'm not a part of the group. I'm recording the group. I'm not a part of that. So that makes him the reporter. That's what he came there to be. So that absolves him. Just like this administration lied about Alex Petty. Just like they lied about Alex Petty, they're lying about Don Lemon. Okay. We don't. If you still believe this administration, I got some swamp land to sell you. You don't have any discernment qualities. You don't understand what discernment means. You just believe anything somebody tells you. Okay. And it wasn't no common sense. If you ain't no reporter, Black Wolf, you need to settle down and listen. I don't know what you call common sense, but I don't get it. So anyway, Pam Bondi, Attorney General, who needs to be also fired, she dropped a whole bunch of the Epstein files, but it was bullshit that they dropped. A lot of redactions and very little information. So we can't believe Pam Bondi. We can't believe Kristi Noem. We can't believe these people who are very incompetent in their job. Okay, they don't inspire competency. Okay, they don't inspire confidence. It doesn't reassure people about the government. So when the files did come out that included mentions of powerful figures, and when people begin to speculate about all those names, they like, we just getting these names out of here, or these Democratic names out of here, or whatever. You can't put Democratic names out and expect people to believe what you're talking about. We already know that you all proved you were liars. Okay. And here's another reality, right? When you look at how the right, the far right or the right Republicans have reacted. There's been far too much timid silence about and calculated avoidance of the real confrontation with the problems with this White House. Okay. It's embarrassing. Some of it is embarrassing. Okay. This has been embarrassing that we don't have what is it? True leaders in this country. We have people who don't want to stand up for say this is wrong, even though we know.
Hi everyone. So we have
Hold
another
on.
speaker here today to speak with us. This is Todd Hawkins he's one of the board of directors of the Human Rights Campaign. Todd Hawkins.
Hold on.
My name is Todd Hawkins. I am a member of the Human Rights Campaign Board of Directors, and I'm proud to be here today. Let's start with the facts. Freedom of the press is not a luxury in this country. It is not optional. It is not a courtesy extended by those in power. Freedom of the press is a cornerstone of a free society. It is how Americans across and access the truth. It is how we expose abuse. It is how we hold power to account when power would rather operate in the dark. And right now, Donald Trump and Pam Bondi are at war with that freedom. Let's be clear about what is happening. When judges block indictments and journalists are arrested anyway, that is not law enforcement. That is intimidation. That is punishment for telling the truth. That is the state sending a message to stay quiet or else. This is not normal. This is not democracy working. This is what authoritarian leaders do when they are afraid of accountability. They don't answer questions. They silence the people asking them. And we reject the attempt to minimize who these journalists are. These are Donald Lemon and Georgia Fort, Black journalists. Don Lemon is queer. Their reporting over many years have amplified voices that are too often excluded, erased, or dismissed. And that is not incidental. It is the point. When you silence those voices, you are testing how far you can go before the rest of us push back. Here's the wake-up call America needs to hear. When journalists can be detained for covering protests, none of us are safe. None of us are free. And it does not stop there. Pam Bondi's Department of Justice is corrupting justice, even as they refuse to investigate the horrific killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Let that sink in. While journalists are targeted for doing their jobs, the federal government is choosing by law, by policy, by decision, not to pursue justice for lives violently taken. That is not neutrality. That is not restraint. That is a choice. And it tells you exactly whose lives and whose truths this administration believes are disposable. This is the architecture of authoritarianism being assembled in plain sight. Punish the press, ignore the dead, dare the public to look away. We will not look away. We will not sit quietly. We will not allow a wannabe tyrant and his enablers to demolish our democracy piece by piece. Thank you for fighting with us at HRC and the Human Rights Campaign. Todd Hawkins. Todd Hawkins, member of the Board of Directors of the Human Rights Campaign.
I guess they letting people go up and talk, whoever they want to go up and talk, right? I guess I seen with my own eyes he's mentally ill. we gotta forgive you, Black Wolf, because you mentally ill without your eyes. Okay, everything is in a lens, and you need help. Because if anybody's defending the murder of Alex Preddy, then yeah, you need to have yourself checked. You already need to have yourself checked, because that's indefensible what they did. Okay, that was indefensible. But recently, like I said, just for reporting, just for being a reporter, reporting something, they were arrested. Okay, these are journalists, observers, microphone in hand, documenting a public protest by people against federal immigration policy, and federal agents took them into custody. This does not happen undercover somewhere. It happened here in the United States, where the First Amendment supposedly protects free speech. And remember, free speech groups didn't just shrug. Organizations like the Freedom of the Press call these arrests warning shots aimed at other journalists. This is the first step in authoritarianism. This is the first step. When they start to try to squash journalism, try to squash free speech, when they try to squash or change the narrative of what you're saying, they try to squash any kind of dissent. This is the first step. People have been saying this is fascism, this is authoritarianism, X, Y, and Z. This right here, squashing dissent in the journalism realm, this is the first step. And we cannot allow this to go any further than what it is. Okay, this is a pattern. So, because in 2025, watchdog organizations documented dozens of instances where journalists were detained, pulled away from protests, cuffed, held long enough in jail. Okay. That's wild. That's wild. It's making it impossible for news to reach public. You just can't give people, you can't make people dissent, or you can't squash dissent because you don't like what people say. And we got a lot of people who sit there and try to squash what people say because they don't like what they hear. Just because you don't like what's being said doesn't mean it's not true. So this is what we have from the right today. Goofy shit. Just going on goofy shit. No, there is no you're Black America. I don't understand. I don't even understand why you even have why we're having a conversation about free speech. Maybe you don't understand what free speech is. Maybe I'm just saying something that y'all don't understand. Maybe you just don't get what I'm saying. That's our free speech. That is the first tenet of our society, is free speech. Our Constitution is free speech. Black America. The government doesn't get to come along and tell me when I can speak and when I can't. That's the point. You keep making excuses for this administration. You keep making excuses for them. You cannot. I don't know where he was arrested on the red carpet. Was he arrested on the red carpet, or he wasn't?
Journalist Don Lemon has been arrested in connection with an anti-immigration protest that disrupted a service at a Minnesota church. The January 18th protest at the city's church in St. Paul increased tensions between residents and the Trump administration. It's unclear what charges Lemon is facing. The arrest came after a magistrate judge last week rejected prosecutors' initial bid to charge him. The former CNN anchor has said he has no affiliation to the organization that went into the church, and that he was there as a journalist covering the protest. Prominent civil rights attorney Nakima Levy-Armstrong and 2 other people involved in the protest were arrested last week. Prosecutors have accused them of civil rights violations for disrupting the church service. A pastor at the church is a local official with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Lemon was arrested by federal agents in Los Angeles, where he had been covering the Grammy Awards. His lawyer said Lemon will, quote, fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court, end quote.
The hostile rhetoric and dangerous threats and hate must stop. And we all agreed to that. All everybody met here today, we got to stop the rhetoric, the hateful rhetoric.
And you need to stop talking over your tongue. That's wild.
That's caused an increase in assaults. That has caused, because of that, have to send security teams out with arrest teams, which surge the city with additional resources because of the rhetoric, because of the threats,
That's the whole point. It's the rhetoric. And I get it. I get that people get upset because of the rhetoric. But you can't just say the rhetoric. It has to lead to those kind of actions. People should be able to say what they want to say, but these are trained professionals who are supposed to be able to look past the rhetoric and do their job. Police look past their rhetoric told to them, and they do their jobs. Why is it that these people can't seem to look past rhetoric and do their jobs instead of fighting with other people because people say something bad about you? They get in your face. They want I want ICE to do their job, but I also want the local police to be there so that the local police are protecting the regular police, or the National Guard, or whatever is there to protect the regular ordinary citizen. You can go out there and protest, but you can't approach ICE. You can't do X, Y, and Z with ICE. You cannot get in their face. You cannot spray them. You cannot touch them. Regular, ordinary police or the military or whatever, whoever, should be there to protect the regular, natural citizens. Okay? Wherever you're going to protest, you should be, the regular, ordinary citizens should be protected. Okay? And they have a right to protest. They have a right to have signs. They have a right to have the phone. They have a right to do all of that. Okay? They have a right to bring firearms. They can bring whatever they want. That's the Second Amendment right. It's when you pull it out, that's when you have the problem. Nobody's pulled out a firearm, as far as I know, on the ICE lately. Okay? Nobody has done that. And specifically, Knox and Alex Preddy. You all keep defending the murder of a man. I don't have anything in common with you. If you come to defend a man who didn't even pull his gun out, and you all don't have, and the ones who come over here to defend the ICE for killing a man because he had a gun, you don't have a leg to stand on. You have no principles or morals, because you're the group that is always talking about Second Amendment and don't tread on me and all this other garbage. You want to stand on your Second Amendment now, but you want to stand on it later on. No, that's not how that works.
The assaults.
You got us Democrats out here defending the Second Amendment. We've always defended the Second Amendment. Then on top of that, you have goofy goofies. We have some of you goofy goofies out there talking about the Democrats want to take away your guns. Obama was a whole president for 8 years. Biden was a whole president for 4 years. And not now one time did anybody come to y'all gun. That's how y'all sound goofy when y'all say the Democrats want to take away your guns. You sound damn goofy.
Again, with the agreements we've achieved and following through the agreements, with the rhetoric dropping down, that allows us to pull more agents out once we feel the environment safer. I begged for the last 2 months on TV for the rhetoric to stop. I said in March, if the rhetoric didn't stop, there's going to be bloodshed.
But why would you say because the rhetoric didn't stop, it would be bloodshed? Why wouldn't you say because you're armed thugs? You're armed thugs who are going around murdering, raping, hurting, arresting, detaining regular American citizens. If they stand down from the felonious things they're doing, then we wouldn't have this. Why haven't you said that? I've said it before and I'll say it again. You need to send all of these new agents down to the border and have them guard the border and have them read their goddamn rule book. Let them read the Constitution so they understand exactly what it means to deal with immigration, and let the experienced ICE guys come around. We didn't have this guy. We didn't have this nonsense under Obama. We didn't have this nonsense under Biden. There's a reason why we didn't have this nonsense under them, because Biden and Obama didn't give them a directive to hurt people. Okay. The border is no secure than it was 2 years ago. It's been the same. It's no different. All these new ICE agents that just got out of the Cracker Jack box need to go down there and guard the damn border. Go into those towns and start guarding that and figuring out how they're supposed to be ICE agents and not thugs, and get the experienced ICE guys out here doing the job and doing it better and more safer than they ever could. Because I truly believe the ones that have experience are not doing this bullshit. It's the goofy ones, the one just got a gun and a badge and been got experience for 47 weeks or days. Those are the ones that are out here doing this bullshit. They need to go back to training. On top of the fact that Democrats are not funding a bill for ICE if ICE don't get body cams on, if ICE don't take the mask off, if ICE don't have a clear insignia that says that they're ICE. Anybody hopping out of the car, how you just gonna hop out on me and expect me to say X, Y, and Z? No. Fuck you. No, you don't get to tell me what to do. You just jumped out of the car. I don't know what you doing. I don't know who you is. Okay? Don't nobody know who you is. And anybody is going to react to that.
And there has been. I wish I wasn't right. I don't want to see anybody die. Not officers, not members of the community, and not the targets of our operations. There's much more we can do. And I'm going to continue this dialogues. I got many more community leaders to talk to. I got many more sheriffs to meet. President Trump wants this fixed, and I'm going to fix it. The withdrawal of law enforcement resources here is dependent upon cooperation. Like I said, one agent arresting one bad guy in jail means less agents on the street. We have some agreements. We got more to talk about how we're going to implement these agreements. But as we see that cooperation happen, then the redeployment will happen.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
New footage has emerged of Alex Pretty, filmed 11 days before he was fatally shot by Border Patrol officers in Minneapolis on January 24th. In the footage, filmed on January 13th, Pretty is seen here, shouting expletives and spitting at a federal immigration agent's car during a protest. He then kicks the agent's vehicle, breaking a tail light. The agents exit their vehicle and a scuffle takes place.
Well, he deserves to have a scuffle. He deserves to get arrested. Of course he does. He deserves to get arrested. He deserves to get a ticket, arrest, whatever they have coming for him. Whatever he got coming for him. He don't deserve to have his ass whooped. He damn sure don't deserve to get killed. But you're going to have goofy goofies pointing to this right here saying he deserved to die. That's what y'all saying. Most of y'all ain't thinking, but most of y'all saying he deserved to die because he was out there kicking the tail light. He deserves to die because he was out there kicking the tail light, HQ. He deserved to die because he kicked a tail light. This is what is his name? Black, whatever his name is, Black Wolf 6399 is saying. He kicked the tail light, so he deserved to die. Y'all see how goofy that sound?
Pretty, on the ground, loses his coat. When he gets back up, what appears to be a handgun is visible in his waistband. At no point do the videos show Pretty reaching for the gun, and it is unclear whether the federal agents saw it. Agents then deploy smoke canisters and drive away. In another video, a bystander can be seen checking if Pretty is okay.
You okay? Okay. I'm okay. Are we all okay?
The new videos immediately rekindled the national debate about Pretty's death. An attorney representing Pretty's parents said the altercation on January 13th in no way justified the officers fatally shooting Pretty on the 24th.
Of course it doesn't. Only people who have some kind of chink in their armor would defend the fact that he was having a fight with them on the 13th. He deserves to get killed maybe a week later. I think it's a week later or so. Nobody in this picture, nothing in this picture says we got to come back and get you. Nothing, and then there's a lot of people saying because he did this, they came back and found out who he was, and then figured out who he was, and then they came back to get him again, or get him in really. But then again, we don't know whether that's the truth or not. I'm not even going to think that far ahead. All I know is whatever happened in this video doesn't warrant you pulling his gun out and shooting him. Like I said, only people who got a chink in their armor would come around and say, just because I had a fight with you, I kicked the light out of your car. I kicked the light out of the police car, so I deserve to get shot. That means you got a chink in your armor. I'm going to say chink in your armor instead of saying you stupid as fuck. I'm just going to say a chink in your armor.
Homeland Security Investigations is reviewing the new videos and the incident. It's not known if any of the officers involved in the altercation on the 13th were also there when Pretty was killed.
The Justice Department has released a new batch of files.
And this is the new batch of files that of the Epstein. Of course. Now let's see how far redacted they are. Let's see how many names they done took out, how many Donald Trump names. I personally believe he's in the files. He's fighting too hard for somebody else to be in the file. He's just fighting too hard for anybody else to be in the files. He's in the files somewhere. The Clintons have come forward and said, release the files. We don't care, blah, blah, blah. Everybody that said they could have been in the files, they said, come out, just release the file. We don't care. Which is a good thing, because all the files should be released. All the files and the names should be released. Okay? I believe Donald Trump is in them. It is what it is. But that can't be all that he's fighting for. The fact that he's in the file can't be all that's fighting for. It's something else in the files. We don't know what, but it's something else.
Related to its investigations of Jeffrey Epstein. The documents were disclosed Friday under a law intended to reveal what the government knew about the millionaire financier's sexual abuse of young girls and his interactions with the rich and powerful. The files include some of the several millions of pages of records officials said were withheld from an initial release of documents in December. Hundreds of department attorneys have been reviewing files to black out material that could reveal the identities of victims. Epstein killed himself in a New York jail in 2019 while awaiting trial.
Okay.
Meet the most insightful way.
So now we have to wait and see what is in the file. People to look at the files and find out what's going on with the file. There's a lot of files to go through. A lot of files to go through. Okay. So if you want to, you can go through those files on your own. You don't have to wait for nobody else to go through them. You can go to the website, DOJ website, and get those files out and find out exactly what's going on in the files. You don't even have to wait for nobody. Okay. Then you'll see whether your lovely president is in them. I believe he's in them, but then that's just me. That's just me. Okay.
Prison on child sexual abuse charges, and the towns he left behind are transforming.
Okay. But that's just me. I believe he's in the files, but it is what it is, right? So we have to wait and see. People are going through the files as we speak. It's a lot of them. This is a big gigantic bust of those files. Okay. And all of this stuff happened. All of this stuff happened right on a Friday. There's other things that happened too. The president did something X, Y, and Z. I don't know. He did some signing. He did some X, Y, and Z. But this is by far these things have been by far been the most detriment to his presidency, or this much problem to his presidency. I never saw that video. I never saw the video of Don Lemon in the church. I never saw any of that. Okay. So I can't really say whether he actually did it. Wait a minute, hold on. Let me look at something. Let me check out. Let me see the videotape. So it's called. What is it called? The video. The church. The Minnesota church video. Let me look. Minnesota church video. And he was in the, let me see. I would love to see the video, but okay. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Hold on. And they probably going to say something else goofy about the church. But I mean, they probably going to say something about him being in church. Okay, everybody else doing that story, but I was trying to figure out how I can just get Don's footage, Don Lemon's footage of the. Wait a minute, hold on. And I hate to show other people's thing, but wait a minute. Let me Let me open this one with the what's her name? That lady, Kristi Noem. There you go. Hold on. What she said, Kristi Noem, because she always come out with some bullshit. She never comes out with the truth. It's always some kind of lie that she always want to tell. Hold on. Hold on.
Minnesota, one of the organizers of the protests.
Okay.
It's unclear if Easterwood was. The Department of Justice said it's investigating a group of protesters who disrupted a church service in Minnesota. Protesters allege that one of the church's pastors, David Easterwood, is a leader of the local ICE field office, according to the Associated Press.
Remain good.
That office is overseeing operations that have involved violent tactics and alleged illegal arrests. Video was posted on the Facebook page of Black Lives Matter Minnesota, one of the organizers of the protests.
My thing is this. How do you know that how do you know? Here, we know this for sure. Don Lemon didn't walk into that church. Everybody knows Don Lemon is a journalist. Everybody knows he walked into that church to film those people. Everybody knows he didn't go in there. He's not a part of the riots. He's not a part of the protesting. He's not a part of any of those things. He's there as a recorder, as an observer. And Donald Trump is doing what he always does, trying to silence people from putting the truth out there. This was just a video that he just happened to film.
It's unclear if Easterwood was at this Sunday service. The website of City's Church, which is based in St. Paul, lists David Easterwood as a pastor. His personal details also appear to match the court filings of the acting director of the ICE field office in St. Paul, according to the Associated Press. In October, Easterwood can also be seen alongside DHS Secretary Kristi Noem at a press conference. A U.S. Department of Justice Assistant Attorney General said on X her agency is investigating federal civil rights violations of the protesters for, quote, desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshippers. Meanwhile, Black Lives Matter Minnesota co-founder Monique Callis-Doty said, "We can't sit back idly and watch people go and be led astray." City's Church did not respond for comment on Sunday evening, and Easterwood's personal contact information could not immediately be located for comment.
And you know that what's really wild is it's a pastor. It's a pastor. Okay. It's a pastor that has the church there. Is in the church. Christian values. Supposed to be a sanctuary for people when they drop off a baby. Supposed to be a sanctuary that helps people. And he works with ICE. I wonder how he reconciles that. Okay. How he reconciles that, right? I appreciate it, TJ. I appreciate it. You know it's bad when the government deleting white people. I know, right? I know. Welcome, white people. I always say that. Welcome to the black people world where we get deleted on camera and people think we lying about that. I wonder how many of y'all who are protecting the government or defending the government, how many of y'all actually understand that you're defending, or did you defend women? Who is that? When you start murking people on camera, did you defend what's his name? Did you defend George Floyd? Did you defend anybody else? Or is this just your standard playbook of defending the administration? Do you just, and I don't understand. The right is the one who deals with the gun laws, gun things. How is it that y'all are sitting there defending somebody who had a gun, you're defending the establishment, you're defending Kristi Noem when this person had the right to carry this gun? I don't understand. You all either lied when you said you believed in the Second Amendment before, or you're lying now. Which one is it? Thank you, TJ. They're going to use Don as an example. Of course they are, to keep journalists from reporting. That's the point. That's the whole point right there, TJ. Jailing journalists and deleting white people on live TV. Is that what we call in freedom? Hey, apparently they think that's cool. Apparently the right is willing to go, the real right, the goofy right is willing to go along with them silencing journalists, with them deleting people on TV. They deleted 2 white people on TV, TJ. and they want to defend something. What are you defending? I don't understand what you could be defending. Okay. And somebody just said something too. You can hear him saying Renee Good. He said, you can hear him saying Renee Good, along with the protesters saying Renee Good. Yeah, you can hear that too. I don't know whether that stretches to the point of him being a part of the protests. I don't know whether you can stretch that. Floyd was not an OD. Don't bring over here lies from your right wing propaganda area. Don't do that. Floyd was not an OD. That dude stood on his neck and he died because of that. We all saw that. You see how they be trying to twist it and tell us what we didn't see, what we saw that we didn't see what we saw. Y'all better stop it. You don't come over here. Don't come over here spreading those kind of lies. Don't come over here spreading any kind of lies. Okay. I don't have it. You don't get to spread propaganda over here. Just how y'all want to see alternate. It's called alternate facts. We don't have alternate facts over here. We just have facts over here. Okay. So that's goofy logic right there. Okay. So this is what they're doing. And today's story, and I quite frankly believe that this is just a distraction from the Epstein files. Why do all of this? You do all of this on this day, on top of the fact that the government is about to shut down. The government is about to shut down. Y'all know that, right? Because they're not going to fund ICE. They're not trying to fund ICE. They're not trying to fund ICE because they don't have the mask off. They don't have an insignia that's clear that says they're ICE. They don't have full training. They don't have what else? One other thing. No mask, insignia, body cams. That's right. They want body cam. There's certain things that they don't have, so the Democrats are not funding. And 7 Republicans stood with them. Okay, which is a bipartisan no. We ain't dealing with y'all because y'all ain't wearing body cams. We're not dealing with you all, which makes sense to me. Why you would deal with them anyway? Because you jumping out your car and you trying to scare me into doing X, Y, and Z. We ain't finna have it. And so I understand exactly what the hell is going on when you jump out of the car on me. Okay. Hold on. Why do I feel? Okay. I was finna say something. This Hakeem Jeffries. I love me some Hakeem Jeffries because he be telling it straight up like it is. People do not like. You don't like him, but he gonna tell it. He gonna tell it like it is.
To be better for the American people, to drive down the high cost of living, to fix our broken healthcare system, and to deliver a government that actually promotes the health, the safety, and the economic well-being of the American people. Instead, Donald Trump and his administration have been using taxpayer dollars to brutalize everyday Americans, kill American citizens, and violently target law-abiding immigrant families. It's unacceptable, it's unconscionable, and it's un-American. This administration continues to weaponize the Department of Justice, weaponize the Department of Homeland Security, weaponize the power of government to undermine the ability of everyday Americans to live their best life because they're so consumed with jamming their right-wing extremism down the throats of the American people. We will not be intimidated by any of their actions. We will stay the course as it relates to making sure that we actually fund the government in a manner that is consistent with our values, consistent with the Constitution, and consistent with the American way of life. There's a big difference between the Trump administration, Republicans on the one hand, and how Democrats want to spend your taxpayer dollars on the other. Republicans in their one big ugly bill enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, ripped healthcare away from more than 14 million Americans, and at the same period of time, took $186 billion from SNAP, literally stealing food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans. And in that same one big ugly bill, used taxpayer dollars to give the Department of Homeland Security and ICE a slush fund that's been used to unleash a killing machine in Minneapolis, using taxpayer dollars literally to kill American citizens in cold blood. That's what Republicans have done in their one big ugly bill. That's their policy. And Democrats are going to continue to push back aggressively against it. We want to make sure that the Department of Homeland Security conducts itself in a manner that elevates public safety, not undermines it. And the American people are demanding accountability, and that's what Democrats are going to deliver. Question?
Should we expect any sort of organized response from Democrats to the arrest of Don Lemon this morning? And what do you think that says about the Trump administration?
Trump administration has systematically targeted the free and fair press because they want to intimidate America and oppose anyone who is not willing to bend the knee to their extremism. We are not going to be intimidated at all. The free and fair press is central to the foundation of American democracy. Thomas Jefferson famously made that clear, that he would prefer a country that had newspapers over government as opposed to governments over newspapers. This is central to who we are as a country. And so Don Lemon, we know, is an accomplished journalist who was doing his job as part of the free and fair press. There's no legitimacy, no basis to Don Lemon's arrest, no basis to the arrest of the other journalists. And the American people are not going to stand for it. And House Democrats are going to stand up for them. And the rights of the free and fair press as central to American democracy and our values in terms of who we are.
But how?
I issued a statement as it relates to where we are right now. It just happened. And so we haven't had an opportunity, even as members of Congress, to talk to each other about next steps. But of course, next steps will be forthcoming.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I'm sure you've been monitoring what's going on in the Senate. What's your reaction to the fact that there's not a bill yet with the government deadline looming? Do you have any plans to speak to Speaker Johnson between now and when the House gets back? And do you think that 2 weeks is enough time to negotiate the reforms that you're looking for? I know that there's a lot there.
We have to deal with the issue of reining ICE and the Department of Homeland Security in with the fierce urgency of now. And a 2-week window will evaluate whether that's sufficient time, but there's urgency to dealing with this issue. Because ICE, as we've seen, is out of control, and the American people know it. The American people know that the Trump administration on all of the things has gone too far. And that taxpayer dollars should not be used to brutalize the American people, and in some instances, kill them. So this is something that has to be addressed. And, you know, Democrats in the Senate, led by Chuck Schumer, supported by the House, made a clear demand. Separate out the 5 bills that clearly have bipartisan support. And then separately, we can deal with making sure that ICE is brought under control in a variety of different ways, including our demand, which we will not walk away from, which is that judicial warrants should be required before ICE can storm homes and rip people out of their cars. Judicial warrants. The masks have to come off, and body cameras need to be turned on for everyone. There should be an explicit prohibition on the detention and deportation of American citizens, period, full stop. And lawless agents who are brutalizing everyday Americans and law-abiding immigrant families, targeting them violently in violation of the law, should be investigated and prosecuted independently of the Department of Justice. We cannot trust the Department of Justice. They're an illegitimate organization right now under the leadership of Pam Bondi and the direction of Donald Trump. And so, if anything, the events of today reinforce, as it relates to the Department of Justice targeting journalists and part of the free and fair press, that the Department of Justice cannot be trusted to freely and fairly work through the criminal justice system. And it reinforces our demand that agents who violate the law should be investigated and prosecuted independent of the Department of Justice and the Trump administration and state and local officials. It should be made clear that they have the investigative and prosecutorial authority to go after any rogue actors who are part of ICE, CBP, or the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir, thank you so much for your time. Could I ask you your reaction to the Republicans' new voter integrity plan, the mega bill? And are there any provisions that the Democrats could support there?
It's a dead on arrival bill. They know it. Listen, voter suppression is part of the Republican plan to try desperately to hold on to power. Republicans, since the beginning of this administration, have been losing elections all across the country. They've been wiped out electorally. The American people know that it's Democrats who are focused on making their life better, driving down the high cost of living and fixing our broken healthcare system. And it's Republicans who have unleashed this extremism and brutality on the American people and this assault on the American way of life, our values and our democracy, and have had enough of it. And so Republicans are playing games, just like was evidenced by the unprecedented FBI raid in Fulton County, Georgia. Republicans don't want a free and fair election because they know when that happens, and will ensure that it happens, they're going to lose. They're going to lose the House. They're going to get crushed all throughout America. So the latest voter suppression bill is not a serious thing. Let's just be clear about that. You're asking me a legitimate question, but it's an illegitimate bill. That's dead on arrival. It's going nowhere.
I do have a policy follow-up on that bill, just regarding, I remember covering during the first Trump administration, Democrats were very concerned about Russia meddling in elections. Are you confident that the current election systems in all 50 states and U.S. territories will protect the ballot of U.S. voters?
What I am thankful about is that the administration of elections are done locally as opposed to in the hands of the Trump administration and this group of corrupt sycophants.
Mr. Leader, I just wanted to know if you are going to be whipping against the resolution that Greg Steube said he's going to force your vote next week to expel Sheila.
Y'all really need to cut it out. You really do. Every time you get a person that's on screen that you don't like what they say, you have to denigrate them. No, you notice nobody does that except you goofy people on the right, right? You notice that we don't do that on the right. Stop doing that. Sometimes I wonder whether y'all mature enough to even have conversations with. Okay? These people are elected officials. You don't see me going in on X, Y, and Z in the Congress or the House. They're just doing their job. And I dare say they got more on the ball than you do. So stop making jokes. Makes no difference. That's just dumb. I hate that kind of chatter.
Congresswoman is, of course, entitled to the presumption of innocence. She's going through the process right now. And any effort to expel her.
Yeah, I talk about your shitty president. That's just your shitty president. I don't talk about your congressmen and congresswomen. Only your shitty president. There's a big difference. You all talk about everybody. And the shitty presidents you think we had, plus our Congress people. Big difference.
Lacks any basis at this moment in law, fact, or the Constitution.
Sure.
And if, in fact, there's
Sure,
a
whatever.
resolution that is brought to the floor to try to expel the Congresswoman, it's going to fail. It's going to fail. It requires 2/3. It's an exercise that is just designed to get attention and is inconsistent with what due process requires at this moment.
Mr. Leader, progressive groups are criticizing this deal that's coming out of the Senate. Do you think the criticism
What
of
groups?
Chuck Schumer, progressives are
What
criticizing
groups?
it,
I'm
saying
asking.
it, none specifically, but different ones. here
Well,
and
it's
there.
hard to respond if I have no idea what groups you're talking about, because I speak to groups all the time, and I haven't heard that criticism.
Don't like it.
Thanks. I haven't, there's no agreement that's been before us right now. Lindsey Graham apparently is holding up the agreement, threatening to shut.
What's a Democrat communist? I'd love to know what that is. What is a Democrat communist? We don't, that's the right side. That's not the left side. Y'all get your ideology straight. Fascism is on the right. That's far right. That's what the far right is. Fascist. Socialism is on the far left. Communism is not socialism. Please get your shit straight.
Shut down the government because apparently Senate Republicans still support.
You don't even know. I'm not even going. We can't even engage because you don't even know.
Using taxpayer dollars to brutalize American citizens, and on top of it, to make matters worse, apparently Lindsey Graham wants access to a multi-million-dollar taxpayer-funded slush fund. That's insanity. So the Senate has to do its thing before we have anything to evaluate. But I'm going to remain in close contact with Leader Schumer, and hopefully they'll get something done today.
You said that you were supportive, the House Democrats are supportive of breaking the bills apart though and doing the five alongside short-term CR for Homeland. Do you see any problems?
Now, what I said, just to be clear, what I said is that we demanded from the very beginning, which John Thune said would never happen. John Thune said it's not happening. Then he brought the entire package together to the Senate floor yesterday, and it failed spectacularly. Notwithstanding what John Thune said, which is bills are not going to be separated out. They will be separated out. We made that demand, and it's happening. And Donald Trump has agreed to that, apparently. So that's what we're supportive of. In terms of evaluating the path forward relative to the Department of Homeland Security legislation, we're going to have to evaluate what the real opportunity is to get dramatic change at the Department of Homeland Security. It needs to be bold, it needs to be meaningful, and it needs to be transformative. And absent a path toward accomplishing dramatic change and making sure that ICE and DHS are conducting themselves like every other law enforcement agency in the country, then Republicans are going to cause another government shutdown.
You've had dozens of Democrats that said they won't give another penny for ICE. Do you see any problems passing the stopgap on Homeland Security if that comes back to the House? Do you think that Democrats will be forced to carry the water if they bring that up?
It all depends on, well, are you talking about a continuing resolution?
Yeah, like a 2-week stopgap.
Well, it all depends on how people interpret, a continuing resolution. If it's 2 weeks, that's a freeze on ICE funding. That's not an additional amount being given to ICE. That's a freeze on ICE funding. But we'll have to evaluate whatever comes together once Lindsey Graham stops.
Y'all got to come better. Y'all really need to cut it out. What is this Soros? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Stop listening to Fox News, which is not a news organization. It is a entertainment show. Fox News is not the news. If you ever go there to get news, you're being entertained. It's not a news show. Please stop looking at Fox News with Fox News telling you about Soros. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. My goodness. We dealing with this shit from Obama era. He's talking about Soros. Y'all stop it.
Drops his temper tantrum, and clearly he's going to have to drop his objection because of his obsessive quest to get this multi-million-dollar slush fund. This is insanity. This is who the Republicans have become. Why aren't they focusing on making life better for the American people? We are. We want to promote the health, the safety, and the economic well-being of everyday Americans. That's what the appropriations process is all about.
Hey, Stephen J.
But Republicans are making it about themselves and their billionaire donors rather than keep the American people safe.
Chip Roy and some House Republicans have said that if DHS funding comes back on the table, they have some demands. How do you plan to get this new final product to be both severe enough that your caucus feels comfortable with it and also not get completely held up by House Republicans?
The demands being made by far-right extremists in the House Republican Conference are going nowhere. And if for whatever reason, Speaker Johnson bends the knee to the far right, then Republicans are going to shut the government down because they would apparently have zero interest in getting ICE and the Department of Homeland Security under control, which their own voters are demanding happen.
See, this is the something that I can't really get by, and I was thinking about this the other day. We have two parties in this country. What happens when your party gets the ball? What happens when your party gets the place gets up to bat? What happens? When your party gets up to bat, meaning when your party gets up to the plate and decides what they want to do with this country, do they put everyday ordinary Americans first because that's the bulk of this country, or do they have other priorities? Do they actually put everyday Americans first? Every time a Republican gets up to bat, he never puts the everyday ordinary American first. It's always the rich, the business, the foreign aid. It's always. Okay? It's always. Every time a Democrat comes up to bat, a Democrat always thinks of the bulk of us first. Okay? They always think of the bulk of the collective is what comes first. Okay? Every time this Hakeem Jeffries gets in front of a camera, he always is direct, succinct, straight to the point. Everybody's always whining about people lying to him and X, Y, and Z. I haven't heard this man say a lie yet. Okay? But every time I see Mike Johnson get in front of the mic, he's lying. Chuck Schumer get in front of the mic, he's lying. Kristi Noem get in front of the mic, she's lying. Donald Trump get in front of the mic, he's lying. Every time I see a gazillion and one people on both sides get in front of the mic, they lying. But this is the only one that I've ever seen that got in front of the mic that told the truth. Regardless of whether you wanted to hear it or not. Okay? Regardless of whether you wanted to hear it or not.
Their own voters.
And every time he get to the bat, every time he gets to the plate to take a swing, he always takes a swing. He don't never balk and wait till somebody else says something. He always says something. Okay? The last administration got us out of the ditch. The last administration got us out of the ditch because your president Trump ran us into the ditch. Your president put us there. Biden got us out of the ditch. And now we're back in a ditch. Now we're back in the ditch. Lord have mercy.
I've not been in touch with the Clintons, but it's my understanding that their legal team continues to engage in good faith negotiations to try to get to a resolution. My position on the underlying criminal contempt resolutions being brought before the Congress potentially by James Comer remain the same. Comer is not interested in any legitimate investigation. Democrats had to shame Republicans into joining us to force a vote and pass legislation to compel the Department of Justice to release the Epstein files. Pam Bondi and the DOJ are the ones who should be held in criminal contempt at this point, because they're in direct violation of a federal law that Donald Trump signed to release the Epstein files that are in their possession. And there are millions of documents that haven't been released. And the only thing that the public has seen are about 13,000. Does that sound like compliance? That's not compliance. That's a brazen violation of their legal obligations, the Department of Justice's legal obligations to release documents. And so we'll see whether there's a resolution prior to a so-called criminal contempt vote, but my position on it remains the same. Yeah.
Thank you. I know you said that the deal hasn't come out of the Senate yet, but it's looking very likely that it will be 5 funding bills and a 2-week DHS-CR. If that is what comes to the House after Senator Graham drops his hold, will you support that?
Well, that question has already been asked and answered in a variety of different ways. One thing is clear, is that Leader Thune and Mike Johnson and Republicans originally took the position that the 5 bipartisan bills were not going to be separated. The fact that the 5 bipartisan bills are going to be separated in and of itself, right out of the gate, is a victory for the American people. Simultaneously, we have to evaluate, is there a real path toward making the dramatic changes at the Department of Homeland Security necessary to stop the use of taxpayer dollars from brutalizing everyday Americans and killing American citizens, like Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy? That's a question to be evaluated, particularly if we find ourselves in a situation where there's going to be an intense negotiation, where Democrats have drawn a hard line in the sand. We have not been shy or bashful in articulating what will be necessary, including but not limited to judicial warrants and an explicit prohibition on the detention and deportation of American citizens. And
and that's the beauty. You all come up with what you think happened, and none of you have any proof. None of you have any proof. Jeffries has never been a criminal. That's your problem. You don't have any proof. You're just talking. Trump is not here to fix what the other administration did. Trump is here to steal his money. Trump is here to enrich himself. That's it. He's not here to help the everyday average American person. He's just here to enrich himself. And you all just happen to be the suckers that is enriching him. That's all.
to the roving.
I understand exactly what he's doing. Can you please explain what he did with the meme coin money that he got from the Goofy Goofies right when he got into office? He started up 2 meme coins.
Bands
Yes.
of ICE agents violently targeting people all across America. Those have been our conditions. Those will remain our conditions until we get this done for the American people. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Alright, so do you have that? Could you also please verify your date of birth? This information, Mr. Holmes. So you need an email where you can send this doc payment form.
Who may remain
and under what rules. The other vision treats our sovereignty itself as immoral. In that vision, borders are an imperialist evil. The law is a fascist oppression, and our identity as Americans is a source of guilt and shame rather than pride and celebration. All of these ideas are connected. For the kinds of people who are attacking federal law enforcement in the streets of Minneapolis. They believe that we don't deserve to enforce our laws as a nation because they believe we don't deserve to exist as a nation. They're not hiding the ball. You can hear it very clearly in their slogans, quote, "No one is illegal on stolen land," end quote. So that's what this is. It's a debate about whether the United States remains a nation or not. The rule of law is essential to the American constitutional order. It is the clearest, most visible expression of self-government. A people cannot enforce its own laws, cannot meaningfully govern itself. As much as some of my colleagues across the aisle wish it was, immigration law is not some break with long-standing norms. A country that cannot say who belongs cannot remain a country at all for very long. Every serious nation understands this. Throughout history, societies that endured were willing to defend their borders, uphold their laws, and insist that citizenship carried obligations as well as benefits, without apology or shame.
This is the vote in which they decided it was going to be somebody having a partial shutdown. I don't know what the hell is going to go on, but they're about to take a vote, and some Democrats, some Republicans voted with the Democrats, so it is what it is.
To understand what's at stake, we must be honest, fully honest, about what the Democrats are demanding, what that vision would mean in practice, and why it represents a fundamental break with the idea of America as a sovereign nation. To understand what lies ahead, we must be honest about what the Democrats are demanding and what it would mean in practice. They speak the language of accountability, of oversight, of reform. Those words sound reasonable enough. They're meant to. But when you strip away the euphemisms, when you look at the substance rather than the slogans, the demands all converge on a single outcome: robbing us of the power to enforce our immigration laws. This is not by accident. It's the continuation of a project that has been explicit for years. Abolish ICE, they say. Defund ICE. Pick your slogan, it doesn't matter. It's all part of the same project. Open borders and uncontrolled, unvetted, unlimited mass immigration. In the left-wing worldview, anything less than this is unacceptable and an unacceptable crime against humanity. For them, the problem is not illegal immigration. The problem is any and every attempt to stop it. That worldview rejects a basic premise of nationhood, that a people has the right to decide who may enter, who may remain, and under what rules. It denies that citizenship carries meaning, that membership entails obligation, or that law applies equally to those who violate it. And when a society reaches that point, when it treats enforcement as an offense and anarchy as virtue, it begins to dissolve from within. The end state of this Democrat vision is plain as day. Maybe ICE continues to exist, but only in name. The law remains on the books, but only on paper. Illegal presence becomes permanent by default, not because Congress voted for it, but because enforcement has been made impossible. You don't actually have to pass a law called amnesty to get the same effect. But this is an abdication of our duty to the American people. To understand how this vision is being put into effect, how our immigration laws are being hollowed out without ever being repealed, we must look closely at the specific demands now being advanced and what each one is designed to accomplish. The Democrat vision doesn't begin by repealing the law. It begins by making enforcement personally dangerous and professionally impossible. It's clever, actually. It's twisted. They get to say, see, we don't believe in open borders. We're not repealing any of our fundamental immigration laws, because many of the demands aren't actually going after the law. They're going after the people tasked with enforcing it. But of course, as they know very well, that gets them the same exact outcome. And that's no accident. History teaches a simple lesson. If you want a law to die without repealing it, make its enforcement intolerable. I'm not going to spend much time debating the Democrats' demands for DHS as we roll into this 2-week debate, 3-week debate, 4-week debate, whatever it's going to be. There'll be plenty of time for that over the coming weeks. And I look forward to being on this floor dissecting each one of their proposals and how disastrous it would be for our country. But consider for a brief moment the demand that officers remove their masks and identify themselves publicly during operations. This is a clear and obvious attempt to intimidate and put our federal agents in harm's way. ICE officers are already being doxxed. Their names and addresses are posted online. Their families are harassed. Their homes are targeted. No one would demand this of narcotics officers, counterterrorism agents, or fugitive task forces because we understand that exposing law enforcement to retaliation is sabotage. The effect is obvious and very well intended. Make enforcement personally dangerous. Make every operation an invitation to harassment. Make every officer a target. When the state refuses to protect its own agents, it sends a message, one louder than any speech, that enforcement is something to be ashamed of, not supported.
Y'all make sure y'all hitting that like, share, and subscribe button. Please and thank you. Hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Please and thank you.
And when enforcement becomes dangerous for enforcers, enforcement does not survive. What emerges is not reform, it's amnesty by default. Not the kind debated openly. Not the kind voted on. Not the kind Democrats would have to openly defend to the American people, but amnesty achieved through attrition, through delay, exhaustion, and paralysis, so that no one has to claim responsibility for the result. Every step along this path points the same direction. The collapse is not accidental, and once amnesty becomes the default, once presence becomes permanent simply by waiting, the idea of a nation governed by law gives way to something far more fragile, a territory administered by drift. That is the future vision that is produced here. Today, I want to lay out another vision before this body, one grounded not in drift or denial, but in law, order, and national survival. Enforcement in the honest application of the rules that everyone can see, understand, and live by. Law without consequence is not compassion, it is chaos. And chaos always falls hardest on the innocent, the lawful, and the most vulnerable. This vision rejects the moral inversion that has come to dominate the debate so far in the last few days here. It rejects the idea that those who break the law are the only ones deserving of sympathy, while those who enforce it must apologize for doing their jobs. It rejects enforcement by permission, supervision by activists, and amnesty by exhaustion. Instead, it affirms something older and sturdier, that order is the foundation of freedom, that rights endure only where duties are enforced, and that a people remain a people only so long as they're willing to defend the rules by which they have to live with together. This vision doesn't ask for new theories or radical departures. It asks for seriousness. It asks for the minimum requirements of sovereignty be treated as non-negotiable. It asks that the law be enforced as law, predictably, humanely, and without apology. Today, I want to lay out a framework, 4 principles, 4 ways to restore enforcement, defend citizenship, and ensure that the United States remains a nation worthy of the name, 4 legislative ideas to protect America. Each one restores something that has been deliberately weakened. Each one reasserts a basic function of sovereignty that no nation can survive or expect to endure. First, end sanctuary cities permanently. Sanctuary policies are not acts of compassion, they are acts of defiance. They announce openly that federal law will be ignored within certain jurisdictions and that those who violate immigration law will be protected from its consequences. This creates a 2-tiered system, one set of rules for citizens and lawful residents, and another for those who enter or remain illegally. That's why we must support my colleague, the senator from South Carolina's bill to end sanctuary cities. A nation cannot survive if its laws stop at the city limits. Conditioning federal funds and cooperation is not punishment, it is reciprocity. If a jurisdiction wants the benefits of federal partnership, it must respect federal law. Anything less is an admission to the nation that it no longer governs itself uniformly. Second, enhance penalties for illegal entry and reentry. Illegal entry is a misdemeanor. It's time to increase that penalty and make it a felony. And for illegal reentry, entering, being deported, and then re-entering, we're going to meet that lawless behavior with swift, predictable consequences for that violation. It is the only humane alternative to chaos, backlog, and false hope. When weak penalties on entry allow illegal presence becomes permanent by default, borders cease to exist in practice, no matter what the law says on paper. Third, protect our law enforcement. We should protect the men and women of law enforcement. I've heard on this floor, including from ridiculous politicians across this country, comparing our men and women of law enforcement to the Gestapo, to Trump's secret police, of a Nazi regime, of an invasion. Pump the brakes. I don't know that you actually believe it, but a lot of the people who are agitating and creating confrontations and dangerous situations on those streets certainly do.
Yeah, but you see the hypocrisy that is always on the right. You see the hypocrisy. Your side is always calling Democrat terrorist. Boy. The hypocrisy is crazy. Alex was a terrorist, y'all. Alex was a terrorist. Renee Good was a terrorist. That's the goofy shit the right says. And now he want to try to call the left out? Y'all all need to shut y'all's ass up when it comes to that kind of language.
Recognize.
Don't make it seem like it's only on the left. It's always on the right because the president always said it. He always says it, including his Miss Caroline Levitt always says it. Every time a politician gets in front of the camera and they're on the right, they say some goofy shit like terrorist, unhinged, lunatic. It's always something about the left. Left, lunatic, unhinged, terrorist, always. Every time one of them gets in front of the camera. You don't never hear that language from somebody. The left never gets in front of the camera and says that crazy shit. Every once in a while you might see one, but every one of the people on the right does it.
Law enforcement are increasingly targeted. Obstruction and assault have been normalized. Weak consequences invite escalation. Modern obstruction is sophisticated now. It avoids fists, but achieves the same results. Officers are surrounded, blinded, blocked, and drowned out. Operations are shut down through violence, not through violence, but through chaos engineered to appear peaceful. Protecting officers is not about politics. It's about whether the state stands behind those who serve it. A government that abandons its enforcers invites disorder because authority that will not defend itself cannot command obedience. Law must protect those who uphold it, or it will not be upheld at all. We must pass my Protect and Respect ICE Act that increases federal penalties for assaulting ICE agents. But we must also be serious about interference and escalation tactics that are becoming more common. So fourth, dismantle rogue NGOs. There are organizations in this country, nominally quote unquote nonprofits, that materially provide obstruction, incitement, and even violence against law enforcement. They coordinate interference. They publish officer information. They encourage confrontation. And they do so while enjoying tax-exempt status subsidized by the American people. That ends. If an organization materially supports or incites domestic violence or obstruction of federal law enforcement, it is not a charity. It is a political weapon, and it will not receive a penny of taxpayer subsidy. Taken together, these four principles don't harden the nation, they steady it. They replace drift with direction, paralysis with purpose, and apology with resolve. They move us away from amnesty by default and back towards something far more just and enduring, a country governed by law. If the Democrat vision prevails, the consequences will not arrive all at once. They never do. They arrive quietly, incrementally, under the comforting language of reform and restraint, until one day the reality can no longer be denied. Enforcement retreats. Illegal presence becomes permanent. Citizenship is diluted, not by law, but by neglect. The authority of law erodes first at the margins and then at the center. When rules are enforced selectively, obedience becomes optional. When consequences are delayed indefinitely, deterrence disappears. And when a nation signals that persistence matters more than legality, it invites exactly the behavior it claims to oppose. Borders become symbolic. The distinction between lawful and unlawful becomes blurred. And the moral authority of citizenship, earned, protected, and passed on, gives way to a system governed by drift. This is not collapse by invasion, it is collapse by abdication. And it's what happens when a society convinces itself that enforcing its own laws is somehow mean-spirited, while refusing to reckon with the human cost of disorder. Communities stretched thin, public trust eroded, and a growing sense that the rules apply only to those who follow them. Moments like this don't come around very often, but when they do, they clarify things that have been
by the law. But we're on the run, and an 80% stories about a guy getting his finger bit off. The ICE agents and the Border Patrol and all federal law enforcement involved in this has been slandered and smeared. And to the Republican Party, where have you been? Count me in for holding them accountable. Where are you at, leaders? Where have you been? These people are patriotic. They're away from home. These crowds follow them to their hotel. They intimidate their families. The people pushing this are nuts. They're not normal. The man who got shot, investigate. But do not tell me that he didn't have an agenda. Look what happened 10 days before. Maybe excessive force, let's look. But don't play a game like the people out in the streets that are harassing ICE, that they're not part of the problem. The real problem is not Kristi Noem. You can say whether she's done a good job or not, Stephen Miller. The real problem is that there are 12 states in America who openly defy federal law. Why are we dealing with this? During the 4 years of Joe Biden, you obliterated our borders. You let anybody and everybody that could get here. You created chaos, and a lot of Americans have been destroyed by your illegal immigration policy, and all you want to talk about over there are the cops. Senator Schumer, you blame me, I blame you.
And there it is. This is where the goofy right got the fact that there was open borders, got the fact that the problem is the immigrants. These people right here who kept saying it over and over and over again when it's really not true, but it's easy for y'all to believe that. Y'all believed it. The problem is the immigrants. It ain't the fucking immigrants that's the problem. It's the people right here who not doing what they're supposed to do for the American public. And they're scavenging and keeping the money for themselves instead of giving the money where it's supposed to be in programs that help regulate everyday ordinary Americans. So they turn around and tell you it's the fucking immigrants that's the problem when the real problem is them. I understand where a lot of y'all get these talking points from. It's the immigrants. The immigrants got to get out. They got to get out. They stealing our jobs. Yeah, y'all get that shit from these goofy men right here. The ones that want to keep you poor right here.
I work with you on comprehensive immigration reform. It's not I can't get there, but when you got in charge with Biden, you did everything conservatives were afraid of. You ignored the law. Has anybody mentioned Laken Riley lately? The Lincoln Riley Act.
Has anybody mentioned the Second Amendment and Alex had every right to have a gun? Anybody mention that? Or we gonna talk about Lincoln Riley again? I'm sick of Lincoln Riley. I'm sick of hearing about her. We got other deaths that are front and center. We have other deaths that are front and center. We have a bigger problem. By pale comparison, that's a small problem compared to the bigger problem that we have. And the bigger problem is we have people who are dismissing a regular law-abiding citizen's death by the hands of an ICE agent. And they took his gun away, and then they executed a regular, ordinary American human being who didn't pull a gun out, who wasn't aggressive or anything else. We have bigger fish to fry. Fuck Lincoln Riley. We done with that. We done with that. Now it's time to concentrate on what's in front of you. And what's in front of you is 2 dead white Americans. And an immigration force that's acting like the Gestapo. That's acting like they're foot soldiers of the fucking right. That's what should be talked about. But seeing as how they got goofy goofies that will, the heartstrings are going to get pulled by Lincoln Riley. Let's mention Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley was killed by an immigrant. Oh my God. We get all that. Let's pull her out every time we want to fucking talk about a dead American at the hands of a immigrant. Every time I hear one of these people on the right, Lincoln Riley, Lincoln Riley, Lincoln. No, fuck Lincoln Riley. We're talking about the 2 people that got killed last week, 2 weeks ago. Fuck Lincoln Riley. She's done. We're done with that. Okay? We're done with that. Stop pulling it out. It don't have the same effect. What does have the effect is you have regular, ordinary American citizens getting murked by fucking ICE agents. Now, shouldn't their deaths be just as bad as this Lincoln Riley's? Shut your ass up, 46 MD. They were both law-abiding citizens. Y'all wild. Y'all wild. You tell me where Alex broke the law at. Tell me where Renee broke the law at. This is what I want to know. Law-abiding. I said law-abiding citizens. Somebody give me where they broke the law at. Where did they break the law at? I'd like to know.
Was a great piece of bipartisan legislation by Senator Britt from Alabama. We all came together to say, no more Lincoln Rileys. Well, what are we talking about? Lincoln Riley was killed by an illegal immigrant who was in detention in Texas and released because they had no bed space. Under the law, the DHS secretary cannot mass release people. They have to do it on a case-by-case basis. They were releasing people by the thousands. This young lady is dead because they had no place to hold him and then let him loose, knowing he might be dangerous. He makes his way to Georgia and he murders her. 1 year ago, yesterday, we signed into law the Lincoln Riley Act to the Republican Party. Why didn't we talk about that? Why didn't we remind the American people that part of what we're doing here is to not go back to the Joe Biden ways? We made a mistake here. We're on the run in an 80% issue, and I'm tired of it. We should be reminding the American people we're different than our colleagues on the other side. We're not going back to Joe Biden policies. You can be unnerved by what's happening in Minneapolis.
What did Joe Biden policy have to do with Lincoln Riley right at this moment? What does that have to do with anything? Interfering with an investigation, you goofy. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? Nobody pulled a gun on nobody, goofy. HG. Y'all act like y'all don't see y'all act like you are you blind? Because you got to be blind. Because nobody, not even people, goofies on your side, HG, agreed that he pulled a gun. We all know that he didn't pull a gun. What the fuck are you talking about? Ain't nobody pulled no gun on no law enforcement. That's wild. That's wild. That's wild.
I get it. But the problem is you want Band-Aid solutions. We're going to have a vote on the floor of the United States Senate in 2 weeks as to whether or not we should criminalize the act of local and state officials who willfully disobey.
Oh, you all are zombies. Zombies. Yeah, we done seen the video, HG. Everybody's seen that he didn't have no gun or was not reaching for a gun. And we're not talking about the borders. Stop talking about the borders, goofy ass fucks. We're talking about what happened in Minnesota. We don't care what happened at the border. The border's been done and over with. Stop talking about it. No, you get a grip. What you need to do is get a grip and figure out what the fuck happened in Minnesota instead of worrying about what's at the fucking borders. The borders, according to y'all, are closed. Why the fuck we keep talking about it? We done talking about the border. The border's closed. According to y'all, the border's closed. Shut the fuck up about the border. We don't need to hear about goddamn Biden keeping the border open. What we need to hear about is why you sent ICE Gestapo out to kill regular American people. Why do they have the mandate to come kill regular ordinary people? We don't give a fuck. Ain't nobody going to be punished for Biden having an open border. So why are we talking about an open border? The only thing that does is keep goofies like you talking about open border. I keep saying that's not a fucking issue. That is not even important anymore. Who the fuck cares whether the goddamn border was open or not? 2 people just got killed by ICE agents. Yeah, you need to go get your pizza. Get the fuck
laws on the books because it's good politics for them. If we could go back in time, we probably should have put George Wallace in jail for defying civil rights. These laws were on the books long before Trump. What is the right answer when a state or a mayor says, I don't like this federal law, I'm not going to do it because it's good politics for me? I think you risk going to jail. We cannot live in a country this way where you get to pick and choose the laws you don't like. You can't have 50 state immigration policy. Sanctuary city policy is killing this country. To the 12 states that are doing this, stop. How are you ever going to fix illegal immigration if there are pockets of the country that if an illegal immigrant can get there, they're home free? That's what Senator Schmidt was saying. If you want to reform ICE, count me in. But if you don't get to the root cause of the problem, then you're really not serious about solving it. I will not lift my hold on this bill until I get guaranteed a vote on my legislation that would criminalize the conduct going forward. And what conduct am I talking about? State and local officials openly defying federal law that's been on the books for decades, incentivizing more illegal immigration, massive taxpayer ripoff, and a breakdown of law and order. To these 12 states, you're screwing it up for the rest of us. You need to change your policies and comply with the law that's been on the books for decades, and this should be a punishment. To me, what you're doing is you're inciting chaos. You're putting people's lives at risk. You literally should go to jail if you will not enforce the law, abide by the law. What a novel concept. You break the law, you go to jail. Except you're an elected official, I guess. We have an exception. If you're doing what liberals like, then you actually can break the law. No, you can't. I want to vote on it. And if you got a better idea, count me in. That's my idea. If you can think of a better idea, let me know. If you got ideas about reforming ICE to make it more professional, count me in. But what we will not do in 2 weeks is leave unaddressed the root cause of the problem. And that is 4 years of the Biden administration, 11 million people coming to the country, only God knows why they're here and where they're from, and the chaos they have created. Laken Riley is one example of too many where somebody died because of stupid, dangerous policies. President Trump, like him or not, is trying to lower the temperature in Minneapolis. Tom Homan, good job. But he's not going to quit, and I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up on undoing the damage. I've had it. I've worked with Democrats and Republicans to fix illegal immigration. Now you're doing everything to make it worse. I'm not going to sit on the sidelines and not get in this debate and say, sanctuary city policy is dangerous, it's insane, it needs to be fixed. You can convince me ICE can be made better. I don't think I will ever convince you to abandon sanctuary cities because you're wedded to it on the Democratic side. Let's have this debate. In 2026, if you want to go back to Biden, vote for the Democrats. In 2026, if you want to try to get the country back on a rational footing, vote for us. We're not perfect, but they're not either. So, what would it take to lift my hold? A vote, not an outcome. I'm like any other senator. I don't demand a lot, but I am demanding that my solution to fixing sanctuary cities at least have a vote. You're going to put ideas on the floor to make ICE better. I want to put an idea on the floor to get the root cause of the problem. And that's not unreasonable. Vote any way you want. I'm asking this body to guarantee me that vote, and we move forward. Second thing. What happened with Jack Smith? Here's what happened to me. I didn't know, but now I know. They literally started asking the phone company about my phone calls professionally and personally during a period of time when I was chairman of the Judiciary Committee by subpoena. No one's ever suggested I broke the law. This actually really bothers me. If I were a Democrat, I would be bothered too. The original Arctic Frost provision was signed off by Leader Schumer and Thune, Senator Thune, and it was seen as to have an ethical problem. Not my intent. I fixed it. I changed the language so it would comply. No enrichment by me or anybody else. But I'm not going to give up on the idea that we should abandon holding Jack Smith accountable. The House, you took the Arctic Frost language of the Senate and took it all out. You could have called me about the 500,000. I'd be glad to work with you. You jammed me. Speaker Johnson, I won't forget this. I got a lot of good friends in the House. If you think I'm going to give up on this, you really don't know me. So how about this idea to my House colleagues? Why don't we expand a private cause of action to the 430 Republican groups that may have been abused by Jack Smith? Nothing to do with me. You took the provision and you gutted it. You took the notification provision out, telling senators or congressmen they're asking for your phone records when you're not under criminal investigation, you should know. Senator Peters and I are this close to finding a bipartisan solution to protect the body in the future. It's Republicans today, it could be Democrats tomorrow. We should all want to be notified as senators in a separate branch of government. The executive branch is looking for our phone records unless we're charged or investigating a crime. That's just common sense. They took that out. There was a stampede in the House. Everybody says, well, it passed unanimously in the House. I could care less. What you did, I think, was wrong. You overreacted. We'll fix the 500,000. Count me in. But you took the notification out. I'm not going to give up on that. I'm demanding a vote on the floor of the United States Senate to an amendment that requires notification to a member of Congress if their phone records are being looked at by the executive branch, unless they're under criminal investigation. That's a fishing expedition. We should all be against that. I'm going to demand a vote on the floor that groups, not members of Congress, who may have been harmed by Jack Smith have a private cause of action. Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, the Republican National Committee, the Conservative Partnership Institute, the American First Policy Institute, Save America PAC, My Pillow, 430 Republican-aligned groups and individuals, 197 subpoenas against these groups and what they were doing. To the House, if you expect me to deny these people a chance to have their day in court against Jack Smith, you're talking to the wrong guy. I'm urging the Speaker, give these people and anybody else we find, 430 groups, a chance to hold Jack Smith accountable in court. Nothing to do with me. And if you don't do that, you're giving a pass to what I think is the most abusive investigation maybe in the history of the country, Jack Smith. Within 3 days of President Trump announcing I'm going to run again, they have a special counsel, and with 6 months, they got 90 felony charges in the most liberal districts in the country. I believe it was a coordinated effort to make Trump unelectable. I believe it was lawfare, and I'm going to pursue my beliefs. As to me, what have I done to justify this? He says he can defend what he did to me. Great. Get a good lawyer. See you in court. What did I do wrong? I'm the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I'm asking questions. When it came to January the 6th, I think I was more the solution than the problem. I took this floor and say, enough. I don't think the election was stolen. There may have been some abuses, but I'm done. And what happens? I find out during all this time, they're looking at me for being involved in a plot to steal the election when I'm the biggest advocate. Enough. You actually used my name to Verizon. See you in court. To the government. Donald Trump is suing the IRS for $10 billion because somebody at the IRS may have leaked his records. You should sue. If our government can't be sued by people, only by people not in it, then people like us are wolves or lambs to the slaughter. If they ever say that because you're in the government, you have no rights, that because I'm a senator, my right to use my phone without being interfered with no longer exists, that's insane. I'm going to pursue the damage done to me, hoping it will deter others in the future. I hope after all this is over, people will not be going on fishing expeditions to find out who a senator was calling and why they were calling ever again, unless they believe that senator's committed a crime. Is that too much to ask? This is a defining moment about what's the root cause of problem on immigration. Senator Schmidt, you're right. People have made mistakes in Minnesota. But the reason we have this chaos is that 12 states are pursuing policies that are insane. I will not enforce federal law because I don't like it. And it's popular. Those days are over. And if a conservative, if you start doing that stuff, we've had clerks of court that would refuse to do laws around marriage. I had a opponent in the 2016 race. I didn't last long. He did better. There's some lady somewhere saying, I'm not going to recognize the certificate of gay marriage because it violates my religious beliefs. And that was her job, right? And one guy said, I think she's right. I will go to jail with her. And I said, we will miss you. I'm not going to jail for that. I've got my own views about gay, but if you're a public official, you don't get to have your own views and be a veto. So on the right, there were a lot of people wanting to make a point. I don't agree with gay marriage. I'm not going to follow law. Well, you could go to jail too. That's my point. Our political desires have to have some boundaries around here. So I am willing to lift my hold. I'm willing to vote yes. I actually like the products. I'm asking for two simple things. Give me a chance to express myself on what the solution to our problems on immigration are. I'm not asking for an outcome, for a vote. I've got a bill. I want to vote on it. And as to Arctic frost, I want to have a chance to have a vote on a version that would expand private cause of actions for non-members of Congress who may have a claim against Jack Smith. It'd be up to them to prove it. And I want to work with Senator Peters to see if we can find a way to give us notice so that the next administration can't fish for who we're talking to. They got to actually have a real reason. That's all I'm asking. And I think those are reasonable things. I will end where I began. To the appropriations process, it's a miracle we've done it the way we've done it. It's actually what we've been hoping for. Everybody who's been complaining in our conference, let's get back to regular order. Well, when we try to get back to regular order, they won't let us. Let's do less spending. We checked that block. Well, that's not enough. We actually have, Senator Tillis, appropriations below CRs. And like all of a sudden, we're still the bad guys. People have said, let's go to the floor and debate. Well, they won't let us get to the floor. So there are people in our conference, I've just like had it. We got to have a regular, to our leadership. You're my friends. We're playing not to lose. They, on the other side, have the courage of their convictions. They're coming out here with 21 things that we should do to stop abuses in Minneapolis. We're just sitting around looking at each other, worried. Hold the people accountable in ICE who may have broken the law, but stand up for those in the field trying to protect America and have the courage to say, it's not about Kristi Noem, whether you like her or not. It's not about Stephen Miller, whether you like him or not. It's a deeper, bigger problem. And that's a debate worthy of a great country. So to my Republican colleagues, we need to up our game. I'm not asking you to do things that I think are unachievable. Have a vote. If we lose, we lose. But I am frustrated, and there are a lot of people out there frustrated, that the moment is not being met. I think it's time to reevaluate. To my Democratic friends, you think you got the upper hand? You may for the moment, but what you're asking for is really too much. And part of your problem is you haven't really acknowledged the Laken Rileys of the world and all the people have had their lives upended. That's not balance. You're probably right about ICE reform, but none of you, no protesters, nobody up in arms about this young lady being murdered and thousands other like her. So in 2 weeks, we're going to have a debate. I'll lift my holes. All I ask is to have a voice in that debate. Down the road, all I ask for is to give access to people I think were harmed by Jack Smith. They'll have to prove their case, nothing to do with me, and protect the body against fishing expeditions. That's what I'm asking. I hope we can get there, and I'll end where I began. It's not about the appropriations process. I actually think we've done a damn good job beyond what I ever expected. Now, the Arctic Frost Amendment, nobody talked to me. I've talked to Senator Collins. We'll get that right. Final thought, I told Senator Thune, what does it matter if a single senator says the entire House is wrong? We should respect that senator and let them have their say. I've been told the White House doesn't like this. And I told the White House last night, I don't care if you like it or not. I literally texted my friends at the White House. If I were you, I would not call me tonight. And they didn't call me. I don't work for the White House. They're my political allies. I'm close to President Trump. I don't work for him. I don't work for the House. I've been in the House. I enjoyed it. I like this better. Why do I like the Senate better? Because one person has a say. So when I heard that, well, the House passed it, I think they made a mistake. I think they went too far. The 500,000 thing, let's fix. But you took it all out because there's a rush to judgment, political stampede. So don't ever come to me ever again and say you're just one voice. That's not a good reason to not let me know what's going on or to deny me a chance to have that voice. To every senator in this body, when they started this stuff a long time ago, 250 years ago, they made you special. There's things that we can do that nobody in the government can do. as a single senator. I am not giving that right away to any friend or foe in the White House. I'm not letting the House take that right away from me. I'm not letting the leadership take that right away from me. And you know why you should sort of be in my camp? It could be you tomorrow. Senator Tillis, you've done some things by yourself that you thought were right. We need more of that, not less of that. Senator Collins, you got ripped by the president and took it in a way that I think people in Maine should be proud of. I don't know what was said, but it was reported as pretty tough. And you stood your ground. And I don't agree with you about the vote, but I know with Susan Collins, here's what I get. She'll listen, she'll make her mind up. And if you think you're going to change Susan Collins by a phone call, you really don't know her very well. She does it with a smile, problem solving. There's not enough of it. So this is a time for all of us to reflect. I never do this. I never hold things. I never say, I got to have my vote or else. I'm doing it now because I think it will reset. I think it will reset the debate. I think it would be good for my party to up our game. I think it'd be good for the Democrats to have a challenge on their hands. I do.
Thank you, Senator. You and I were talking last night. You mentioned you closed with resetting the debate. I think that's so important right now because we're talking about appropriations bills, which is fine, and I've fully supported that, and the chairwoman's done a great job. But what we're also hearing now, the Democrats have now moved to, they want a policy debate and policy changes on appropriations bills, which, by the way, I thought we weren't supposed to do in this place, but that's what they want to do, whether it's in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever we come up with on this potential CR for DHS. And I think it's very important for us to remind the country how we got here. This didn't start this weekend in Minneapolis. It didn't start last year when President Trump came into office. It started in January of 2021 when Joe Biden let 15 million people in here illegally and fought every single attempt to stop it. And what we discovered was that laws don't really mean anything if they're not enforced. And we have a president now who ran on the central platform of enforcing our immigration laws and deporting people here illegally. And the Democrats cannot accept that. They can't come to grips with that reality that the American people, I hear a lot of, we're preserving democracy. Well, if democracy means anything to you, it means that when the American people saw what happened and they sent this guy back here to clean up the mess, that maybe we ought to respect that for a year and a half. But they don't want to do it. So we're going to have this debate, right? So the reason why I laid out the 4 ideas is I want to make very clear to my Democrat colleagues, this is a home game for us. You want the debate on immigration? Bring it on. And we can be out here every single day for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, every single hour, because the American people are fed up with this. And I know you believe that too.
Yeah, thank you. Is that a question?
It is.
Okay.
That was a question mark at the end. I know you believe that.
The answer is yes.
I know you believe that too.
Yeah, I do believe it too. I hadn't slept in a while, but it's just normally not me. Senator Collins, I talked before. If we do this, if we can't get appropriations through until we solve a policy debate, we're never going to appropriate again. Today it's immigration. Tomorrow it could be abortion. The next day it could be regulatory reform. Senator Collins is very worried that policy debates need to be done in authorizing committees. To my authorizer committees, what have you done lately? Homeland Security. Senator Johnson, what did we do? These committees are becoming political jousting. Authorizing committees have to be bigger than making points. And you get mad at the appropriators, well, do your job. Senator Risch is working well with Senator Shaheen, but we haven't reauthorized the State Department in like 25 years. So this is a dangerous model. And to my Democratic colleagues, you would be cheering on putting the clerk in Tennessee or wherever she was in jail for not recognizing gay marriage because she disagreed with the Supreme Court. You would be cheering, put her in jail. But you're going to defend some mayor who says, I will not cooperate with the federal government as I'm required to by law. That's politics for you. You're all politics all the time. I've worked on immigration. Senator Tillis has worked on immigration. Senator Collins has. When you got in charge, you blew by everything you said you weren't for.
Wouldn't you agree that the reason why we're here, if it was about ICE, or if it was about DHS, or if it was about President Trump, you would see this everywhere in the country. The fact of the matter is, the instance of violence against ICE agents is 500 times more likely in 9 sanctuary counties in this country. And so Minneapolis has become the epicenter. Why? Because the local law enforcement doesn't help ICE agents. They're having to do the job the local law enforcement might do. They're not telling them when criminals are being released on the streets. Think about that. If the American people knew that murderers and rapists and child molesters who are illegal immigrants, that we're not going to tell federal law enforcement about it because you want everybody to stay here indefinitely, that's insane. And that's why it's dangerous. It's dangerous.
Well, let me end on this. I made my point, I hope. Laken Riley is murdered, dead today, because immigration policy was constructed to the point they had too many people, not enough beds, and they let the man go. He was released because of lack of detention space, not because of some merit under the law. She is dead. A year ago today, we signed the law. There are a bunch of cases like Laken Riley, rape, murdered, dead. There's two sides to this debate. I get what you're saying about ICE going too far. I am with Senator Schmidt. God bless these people for willing to do it. The ones that did it wrong, hold them accountable. I am passionate about cleaning up this mess. It was a mess that needs to be cleaned up. President Trump's adjusting with Holman, but I'm not going to give up on the idea that the root cause of the problem is not Trump. It's not Miller. It's not Nome, all the people you hate. The root cause of the problem is that you've instilled into your base, it's okay to defy law when you like it. 12 states are ignoring federal law because it's good politics for those governors and those mayors. Like the clerk, you don't have the ability to override a law, Supreme Court case, because you don't like it. If you don't like the decision of the Supreme Court on gay marriage and you're a public official, quit your job. You got to follow the law. If you're a mayor or a governor and the law is clear, follow it. And if you don't follow it, then you're committing a crime. We're never going to have law and order until we insist on it. Appreciate this moment. I appreciate my colleagues listening to my frustration. I am ready to move forward. My requests are reasonable. I celebrate the accomplishments of the Appropriations Committee, but this debate that we're going to have in 2 weeks is long overdue. I just ask to have a seat at the table and a voice. Thank you. I yield.
The senator from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sometimes when I hear floor speeches down here, I think of my wife, who I love dearly. I'll be married to her 39 years in June. But Mr. President, for about the first 5 or 10 years of our relationship, I'd do something stupid and she rightfully got mad. And then I felt like I had to hear every other stupid thing I'd done since I met her 5 or 10 years before. There were a lot of very valid points made here today. Very few of them have anything to do with what's ahead of us this weekend. To try and explain where we are here is that Senator Collins has done an extraordinary job with her hand on the rudder of getting 5 appropriations bills that are ready to go to the president's desk. We have an agreement that was between the president and the Democrats before us. The Homeland Security bill has had to be severed for a variety of reasons, and I'll get to that too. And we're trying to address that through a continuing resolution. We're trying to decide if that's 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or 6 weeks. That continuing resolution, incidentally, because of the way we fund the government here, would actually provide more money during the CR than we have in the underlying appropriation that we hope to pass someday. But Mr. President, the reason why we're not moving forward today doesn't have anything to do with the Democrats. It has to do with a handful of Republicans who are refusing to let us move forward. And the fact of the matter is, the reason why we had one of the longest, no, actually, we set a record, the longest shutdown in U.S. history is because some of my colleagues decided to hold up for about 35 or 37 days before we finally came to an agreement. I think we just got to be truthful to the American people. I'm not going to try and outwit the eloquence and the expertise of two accomplished prosecutors. I'm just kind of trying to make it real for people that may be watching. We're going to shut down the government because some Republicans refuse to take the win, refuse to take a negotiated agreement that the president agrees with. President Donald J. Trump agrees with what we can do to avoid a government shutdown. So it just seems silly to me when you parse through all that stuff, sort of like when I'm getting hammered by my wife for all the dumb things I did. Yeah, she was right to be mad at me for the last dumb thing I did, but I thought we'd finish those other arguments. Now we're bringing all that stuff back in. And I love you, Susan. But I mean, let's just lower, when we're talking about lowering the temperature, let's lower the temperature in this chamber and recognize that if we have a shutdown, we own it. Republicans own it. You can say whatever you want to, but it's materially untrue. We have 5 appropriations bills that could fund the majority of the government and not put it into shutdown just by lifting these holds and living to fight for the issues that I agree with when we finally get on the Homeland Security bill. I agree with some of the things my Democrat colleagues want. I've got other things that I'd like to see in the bill. But I don't know why I would hold this up when that real debate is on that bill. Now, to Senator Graham, my neighbor to the south from South Carolina. I'm from North Carolina. I get his frustration with the Jack Smith investigation. It was horrible. He should, I don't know the legal processes, but he should probably be held accountable for prosecutorial misconduct. There are various ways that you can go after Jack Smith if that's really what you're wanting to do. If they did these sorts of surveillance or phone tapping, whatever they did, go after them. Whether or not we should have a $500,000 award for a member who got targeted, I don't want that because that's actually your money. I would like maybe a $1 award to send a message, but come on, guys. And Senator Graham mentioned a $10 billion lawsuit from the president. Really? Where's that money come from? The money fairies or your pocket? If the president's been damaged, of course, he should probably, like any other citizen, receive it. But my goodness, a $10 billion lawsuit seems silly. Now let's talk about Minnesota. I think it was Benjamin Franklin, and he was actually updating something that was attributed to someone maybe 100 years before. But I believe that Benjamin Franklin said something along the lines of better 100 guilty men go free than one innocent be convicted. Now let's talk about Minnesota. Do we really, and look, I get that Mr. Pretty, who was shot, he was obviously agitating. I saw the video of him kicking a tail light out of a truck a week before. Well, why didn't ICE just go ahead and arrest them then and de-escalate then? I've seen the videos more recently, and they're very disturbing. I want the ICE officers who were involved to get a fair shake, but they need to be investigated. To the casual observer, to most people across the United States, it doesn't look right. It certainly doesn't look like us. But there are so many examples of where we want to turn up the pressure when the American people want us to tone it down. Sanctuary Sanctuary states and sanctuary counties are dangerous. In fact, I took every sanctuary city and sanctuary county in my state to task. And I've held them accountable. In fact, I've got a bill I'd like my colleagues to get on. It's called Justice for Sanctuary Cities. It's not something new. I did a couple of Congresses ago. Simply says if a governmental entity has a sanctuary policy, they don't cooperate with federal law enforcement, they release someone who does harm to somebody else, they should have a private right of action and sue that city or town, right? Shouldn't be a problem because the city or town or the state said these are just innocent people. So why should they worry about that? They should endorse it, right? They should embrace it because certainly they're not releasing dangerous people. And the private right of action would only occur if they did. So it's, why don't we start talking about these common sense sorts of ways to lower the temperature, hold people accountable when they're harming ICE agents, and hold ICE agents accountable if they react it in a way that's not consistent with their law enforcement training. If we do that, I think that the American people will appreciate it. But back on the underlying reason why I'm here today, I think it's wrong for us to shut down the government to make a point. If all you're asking for is a vote, and people need to understand that the Democrats, they have held their members back from offering amendments. We would be able, if we got on this bill, we may have to defend some amendments, but we would be able to move on because that was a part of the agreement. So it's Republicans now, a handful, the vast majority of us are ready to go. Republicans now are wanting to get a vote just to make a point. They've already said, I just want to vote. I know it will probably fail. Well, why don't you reserve that for the vote that we're going to have when we're on the bill that is driving your need for most of those amendments outside of the Jack Smith amendment? I mean, come on, guys, this is not that hard. I can figure it out, and I'm not the smartest person in this chamber. And I think the American people can figure it out if we explain it that way. But at the end of the day, if the government shuts down, I've said repeatedly, the only way you can recognize or fix a problem is you recognize you have one. And if we shut the government down today, we created the problem and we need to fix it. Senator Thune, the majority leader, has done an extraordinary job. Senator Thune wants this vote on the floor. Senator Thune wants to avoid a shutdown. President Trump wants to avoid a shutdown. But Senator Graham's right. One senator has a lot of power. And if you use it judiciously, you can be productive and make a difference. But if you use it in the heat of the moment, you can make a point that not a damn person's going to remember a month later. Thank you, Mr. President.
The senator from Virginia.
Mr. President, thank you so much. I rise to follow my colleague from North Carolina and with Senator Collins, the senator from Maine, on the floor. I hope also to be voting today and hopefully soon on behalf of the bill that is pending before us that would advance 5 completed appropriations bills that are very solid bills. To my point of view, none of us ever think these bills are perfect. There are always things in them we wish weren't and other things that we wish had been in them that aren't. But I think these are very solid bills. And I think it's time, not just because of the shutdown, it's time to advance these bills to the president's desk. And I appreciate that colleagues are recognizing that what we need to do is advance those bills and then focus in a very intense, high-stakes way on what I believe is the need for dramatic reforms of DHS and its agencies. And we all know the controversies and we all know some things that need to be done, and we'll see if we can reach an agreement. The idea in this proposal is to take 2 weeks to see if we can find it. If we find sufficient reforms, you'll have votes like mine. If we do not find sufficient reforms, that my vote will not go for the ultimate bill. But in 2 weeks, we'll be able to know whether we can provide significant reforms that would curb the abuses that we're seeing and that people all around the world are seeing to our discredit. I was inspired to speak when I heard about the Graham amendments. Now, as I stand here, I've not seen the filed amendments or their texts, and I'm not yet sure whether, in fact, there will be a vote on the amendments that my colleague from South Carolina has described. However, I want to explain why I think both of these amendments would be a very bad idea. And maybe in explaining that, I might be able to convince colleagues not even to vote on them. But if we do have votes, I'm going to be voting no on both and encouraging my colleagues to do the same. Let me tackle the first issue raised by Senator Graham, proposing to offer an amendment that would create some cause of action against, quote, sanctuary cities. I have two very serious concerns about the proposal as he has described it on the floor and as I've read about it. The first is, what is a sanctuary city? Is a sanctuary city or community a city that just says we're a sanctuary city? Is that enough? What if a city doesn't say they're a sanctuary city, but they refuse to enter into a 237G agreement with DHS? What must the city do or not do to be labeled a sanctuary city? If we're going to have a cause of action that would impose damages that would have to be paid by not the city, it all comes from local taxpayers. It would have to be paid by local taxpayers. You have to have a real clear definition of what a sanctuary city is. And I'm very, very worried about any amendment that would try to punish sanctuary cities for two reasons. First, the administration does not know what a sanctuary city is, the Trump administration. And why do I say that? I say it because of actions earlier this year in May of 2025. I'm sorry, last year in May of 2025, the Trump administration through the DHS listed sanctuary cities in each state. They put out a massive list. Now, I didn't pay attention to 49 states list, but I paid a lot of attention to the Virginia list. And let me tell you who was on the Virginia list. There were 20 counties and 13 cities. Virginia has 134 cities and counties. So the Trump administration said 20 counties were sanctuary counties and 13 cities were sanctuary cities. But when we looked at the list, it was comical. It was like Stephen Colbert or somebody had written this list. One of the counties listed was Martinsville County. That's not a county in Virginia. One of the cities that was listed was Tazewell. But wait, that's not a city in Virginia. There is a town of Tazewell that has 4,000. There's a county of Tazewell that has 40,000. It's not clear whether Tazewell City was meant to refer to either or both of those communities. The list of 33 was rife with not only errors, but misspellings. But my favorite one was this. One of the cities listed as a sanctuary city in Virginia, Duffield, Virginia. Duffield, Virginia, in the heart of Appalachia, 0.6 square miles, population 73, in the heart of Appalachia, sanctuary city. Well, I don't know, maybe Duffield is a hotbed of like immigrants or something. I went to the census data, the 2020 census data, the 73 people that live in that 0.6 square mile town, 100% Caucasian. It's not a hotbed of immigrants. It's not a sanctuary city. And yet the Trump administration listed them. And this was news all over Virginia. The list got published everywhere. Duffield is a sanctuary city. If the mistakes were made on this list about Virginia, I know they were made about other communities as well. And to its credit, the Trump administration in August put out a new list of sanctuary cities in Virginia. And instead of the 33 that was on the list in May, now there were 0 sanctuary cities. Just 2 months later, 0 sanctuary cities. Clearly, that initial list was prepared by someone who didn't know anything about Virginia, anything about sanctuary cities. I suspect it was AI, and I can't decide whether AI stands for artificial intelligence or artificial ignorance, but it included many communities that definitely are not sanctuary cities. And I've only given you the most egregious errors. If you look at the others that were on that initial list, none of them have ever passed sanctuary city legislation. None of them have refused to cooperate with immigration officials in doing their job. So the first thing about a bill or an amendment, that would impose a a cause of action against sanctuary cities is how could we trust that it would be applied fairly when the administration can't even figure out what a sanctuary city is? Here's the second reason I would oppose this amendment and urge my colleagues to do the same, should it be offered for a vote. What about local elections? Like, I've heard from many of my Republican colleagues, and frankly, not just Republican colleagues, those of us who've been mayors and governors, we don't think federal officials in this chamber should micromanage everything a city does or a county does or a state does. If folks in Duffield, Virginia, population 73, decide that they don't like being a sanctuary city, which they're not, they could change out their mayor. They could change out their city council. They could elect different people to have different policies. Why would we have a federal cause of action against a city or county that's responsive to its voters? Allow voters to decide whether their elected officials at the local level or state level are embracing the right or wrong policies. We shouldn't use lawsuits, as much as I like them. I was a lawyer for many years and tried a lot of cases. We shouldn't use lawsuits against localities that have the power to elect their own officials to embrace policies and kick out officials if they're embracing the wrong policies. So on Senator Graham's first proposed amendment, a cause of action against sanctuary cities, we can't even really trust that this definition will be worked out right, as evidenced by the problems that the administration has had. And let's let local and state governments govern themselves and the voters kick out people if they're embracing the wrong policies. Let me talk about the Second Amendment, which I also think would be a very bad idea. We squirreled away in a bill that passed out here in November a very unusual provision giving a cause of action for various senators to sue if they felt like they had been unjustly targeted by an investigation connected to what happened in this Capitol on January 6th. Very unusual to create a cause of action for such a limited number of people. And most of us were unaware it was in the fine print of the deal and only found out later to our surprise and chagrin. The House, to their credit, kicked that provision out. Not smart. It should stay out. Senator Graham is now proposing an amendment, and I'm at least gratified that he's not proposing an amendment that just gives like a special, easy pass lane for senators to bring lawsuits. He's proposing an amendment that would allow more generally individuals who had been subject to that January 6th investigation to bring a lawsuit. But let's just hold on for a minute. We're going to create a federal cause of action to allow people who felt they were unjustly targeted by the January 6th investigation to bring a damages lawsuit against the U.S. government. What about somebody who's shot in the back 10 times by an ICE agent? Like, shouldn't that person be able to bring a cause of action against the federal government? That person can't. Not only because the person is dead, Mr. Preddy, but because federal law does not allow that lawsuit. The family of that individual cannot bring a wrongful death action against the United States because of sovereign immunity doctrines. What about somebody manhandled or beaten by an ICE agent or a federal prison guard? Or what about somebody who is mistreated by somebody in a TSA line, a TSA employee? I mean, shouldn't there be a cause of action against a federal employee who abuses somebody in another way? But there isn't. Federal law generally prohibits these claims because of sovereign immunity doctrines against the federal government, and it is near impossible to bring such a claim against the individual federal employee that carried out abusive behavior. So the proposal that Senator Graham is making is to say individuals who were targeted in an investigation about an attack on this Capitol to overturn the peaceful transfer of power will be given a unique status in American law and be able to file lawsuits against the federal government or against federal officials in a way that no one else can, even people who have been grievously injured or even killed by the actions of federal employees. We should not elevate people's concerns about the January 6th prosecution and give them a special status in American law above those who have suffered grievous physical injury and even been murdered. We shouldn't. Now, Senator Graham is a good lawyer, tried many a case. He knows that there has long been a debate about whether and under what circumstances one might create a cause of action for individuals, a federal tort claim for individuals who have been on the receiving end of illegal behavior by federal employees. That's been a debate that has been kicking around for a long time. And if Senator Graham or anyone in this chamber wants to engage in a discussion about what should the parameters of such a cause of action look like, and how it shouldn't be just for one group of people, but it should be for anybody whose rights have been grievously violated by the actions of federal officials, that would be a worthy discussion to have. It has some challenges to it. It's not an easy discussion, but it's one that's been going on for a long time, and it would be a worthy discussion to have. But for God's sake, especially in the aftermath of these horrific killings of these civilians in Minneapolis who don't have any ability to seek compensation from the federal government for their losses of life, let's not create a cause of action for a certain group of people who were investigated over their role in the January 6, 2021 effort to overturn the peaceful transfer of power in this country. It is my hope that these amendments will not be called up for a vote. If they are, I will strongly oppose them and encourage my colleagues to do the same so that we can move forward on passing the appropriations bills and then getting into a focused discussion about DHS reform. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield the floor.
Mr. President,
The senator from Maine.
I suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call.
Ms. Alston-Brooks.
Order. Will be suspended.
Without objection.
Hard power is the cornerstone of U.S. national security. It's the credibility behind our commitments to defend our core interests. And investing accordingly is among Congress' core responsibilities. I'm proud that the Senate will uphold that responsibility today by passing a full-year defense appropriations for the fiscal year (2026). Our action today is urgent, important, overdue, and yet insufficient. Allow me to briefly remind our colleagues what this vote represents. About a year ago, I offered the incoming administration a few recommendations on the nature of American power and what it would take to sustain it in the face of grave and growing threats. I urged them to push for sustained year-on-year increases to the defense top line, to prioritize investments in the industrial base that equips both America and our allies, and expand the use of multi-year procurement contracts to solve glaring shortages of critical munitions. Suffice it to say, the President's advisors didn't initially seem to heed this advice. In fact, senior budget and defense officials welcomed the first full-year continuing resolution for the military in history, a move that effectively left the Pentagon operating on President Biden's budget and handicapped President Trump's efforts to restore peace through strength. Then they went about trying to internally cut 10% of the military services, setting arbitrary budget reduction quotas that shortchange growing military requirements. Even the administration's first official budget request.
Where there are moderate, massive levels of income and wealth inequality. People on top have never, ever have done as well as they're doing right now, while at the same time, 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, working people struggling to put food on the table, pay for housing, pay for healthcare, pay for education. And maybe most frighteningly, from an economic point of view, for the first time in the modern history of our country, our younger people may actually have a lower standard of living than their parents, despite all of the advances we're seeing in technology and worker productivity. So those are all enormously important issues that we've got to address. But there is one issue out there that is even more pressing and more important. And that is that this country under President Trump every single day is moving closer and closer toward an authoritarian society where we have a reckless and unbalanced president who wants more and more power in his own hands. This is a president who has made it clear he has contempt for Congress and will usurp the power, the constitutional responsibilities Congress has, contempt for the courts, attacks the media every day, does not believe in freedom of dissent, goes after universities. And now, on top of all of that, what we are seeing is that one of our great American cities, Minneapolis, Minnesota, is essentially being occupied by ICE. And what's going on in Minneapolis and has gone on in other cities is not what this country is about, and it's not what this country must never become. We do not want and we do not need what amounts to a domestic army going into region after region, terrorizing the occupants of those communities. We do not want or need and must never allow federal agents, people paid by federal tax dollars with masks on their face, knocking down doors, ignoring the Constitution, grabbing people, putting them into unmarked vans, taking 5-year-olds away from their parents, putting them in detention centers, shooting American citizens in cold blood. So what ICE has become is not an agency of immigration and customs enforcement. What it has become is Trump's domestic army. And I would hope that my conservative friends, people who year after year get up here and say, we believe in small government, get the government off our backs, let local communities make their own decisions, finally stand up and say that in America, we do not need a domestic army terrorizing communities throughout this country. Mr. President, in the so-called big, beautiful bill, Congress not only made massive cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, it not only gave $1 trillion to the top 1% at a time when we have unprecedented income and wealth inequality, it did something perhaps even more dangerous. In that bill, as many will recall, Congress appropriated $75 billion over a 4-year period to go to ICE on top of their previously appropriated $10 billion in funding. So they usually get $10 billion a year for immigrations and custom enforcement, and suddenly, on top of that, they got $75 billion over a 4-year period. And that is not funding immigration and customs enforcement. That is, in fact, funding a domestic army. And I think all over this country, whether you're progressive, whether you're conservative, whether you're a moderate, people are looking at what's happening in Minneapolis and elsewhere and saying, you know what? That is not what this country is supposed to be about. So, Mr. President, my understanding is that in a reasonably short period of time, we're going to begin a discussion on the mini bills that are before us. And I have an amendment in that bill which would cut that $75 billion from the so-called big, beautiful bill that went to ICE. And I would direct that money to go to protect the millions of people who that bill threw off of Medicaid. As everybody will remember, the midst of a major healthcare crisis, people can't afford healthcare. The big, beautiful bill threw 15 million people off of Medicaid. So instead of funding a domestic army, which breaks the Constitution every day, we should be putting that money to help the people of our country get the health care that they need. I look forward to support for that amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
President, I ask you.
Ms. Duckworth, improve. Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Marino, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young.
I'm good. I'm good. How are you? Wow. Can everybody hear me? Are you guys set? Everybody ready? So look, I want to thank everybody for their support. It truly means the world to me. I have no idea what's going on because obviously I haven't seen anything. I've spent my entire career covering the news. I will not stop now. In fact, there is no more important time than right now, this very moment, for a free and independent media that shines a light on the truth and holds those in power accountable. Again, I will not stop now. I will not stop ever. Last night, the DOJ sent a team of federal agents to arrest me in the middle of the night for something that I'd been doing for the last 30 years, and that is covering the news. The First Amendment of the Constitution protects that work for me and for countless of other journalists who do what I do. I stand with all of them, and I will not be silenced. I look forward to my day in court. Thank you all.
Cruz, Marino, and Paul. Senators voting in the negative: Baldwin, Capito, Collins, Durbin, Fisher, Hyde-Smith, Lankford, Murray, Schatz, and Tillis. Mrs. Moody, aye. Mr. Kim, no. Mr. Rounds, no. Ms. Ernst, no. Mr. Wyden, no. Mr. Tuberville, aye. Ms. Cantwell, no. Mr. Sheehy, no. Mr. Banks, aye. Mr. Wicker, no. Ms. Cortez Masto, no. Ms. Hassan, no. Mr. Sheehy, aye. Mr. Padilla, no. Mr. Kane, no. Rochester. Mr. Warner, no. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye. Mr. Husted, aye.
On the committee's website.
Senator's time has expired.
I urge our colleagues to defeat this amendment.
Senator from Washington.
And ask for the ayes and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? Appears to be. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks. Ms. Baldwin. Warren, Gibbs.